Okay, so I wanted to speak a little bit more about the spiral girdle of eternity as a follow-up, because when I published the Octalis and the spiral girdle video, I had some feedback from several people, and especially this particular drawing that we got here. So I'm screen capping this to try to kind of take a good look at it. And this image, I think it's a Buddhist image. It was sent to me by Dipti, a friend on Facebook who understands these things as well and is always into these kinds of structures. It was really awesome that she sent me this, because in the first video I had to make this shitty drawing on a piece of paper with just a spiral coming down. But this is apparently some Chinese or Buddhistic mandala drawing type thing of eternity itself, which is awesome. So I'm not going to have any video of me, but I'm just going to use this, because this structure here that you're looking at is the description of the eternal system, reality, you could say, the structure of reality. And the funny part about it is, or the good part about it is that by me using this map, it actually includes everything that I could ever describe. That's the funny part. You see, this map, this structure of reality can be used for everything. Whatever I've ever spoken about in any of my videos is inside of this system, whether it's outside of existence, which is this top part. This is the top part, the top half, which is outside of existence. And then you have this line going across, and this on the lower side, everything is inside of existence. And this is what I explain about the spiral girdle of eternity. So what happens is you have these lines, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels coming down from the highest realities into lower realities. Now this is all simultaneously right now. This is the structure of now, right? This is how the whole universe, let's say, happens, if you wish, which is a wrong word because that suggests movement. This is so instantaneous, it's immediate in a way. And because it is so powerful, so all-encompassing, the eternal nature of it has to be spread across time, which is what we see in this lower half. So if we take this lower half here, I can't move that up, better up, but yeah, here you go. This is the lower half, right? This is literally existence. And the other top half is literally out of existence. This is literally, this whole piece is out of existence. These are the heavenly realms, and these are the earthly realms down here. And so what happens in the spiral girdle is that as these levels are created instantaneously, but subsequently, so we would consider that a microfraction of a nanosecond or something, you know, if we want to relate it to time, so fast that in a blink of an eye, the whole thing is already done, and there will be no time for us. Instantaneous or absolute time. So what happens is, this coming down, at every level coming down will be an I. This will be intelligence, a level of the knower, or the I that is. And all these I's are stepped down. Our world is this world right here. This is the world of being, the world of knowing, the world of the aware consciousness. This is our real world. This is what liberation or spiritual endeavor is about, discovering your true nature, which is the being that is here. This is the I ring of what we are. And this is the world. Once you get beyond this point, right here, all creation starts right here. This is the beginning of creation. And when creation is, I mean, all form, all thought, everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, right, which is perception, all the what we call objective physical world, is all starts right here. When you leave your true place of origin, which is being, which is that which is aware of anything, any object, any thought, you pop into existence. And once existence is born, you get all these layers. You can see here, it seems to be a drawing of the physical earth almost, I think. Physicality, and then you see people in the waters, that could be considered, you know, maybe for flat earthers that would be a dome and the waters above or whatever. But the point is, every layer further out you get more lost in Maya, more lost in samsara. So this is existence. This is what everybody keeps speaking about, whether it's Graham Hancock or Corey Goody or David Wilcock or all the guys that speak about physical things, including aliens. they're still always talking about existence. They're still always talking about this level over here where most people live, or more further out. But this is the labyrinth. This is in infinite form. This place never ends. You never find yourself or reality out into these realms. And you can see down here, the further away from eternity, the further away from the higher levels here, you get further and further down, and you can see the fiery flames of suffering and pain and demons and interdimensional beings and suffering. You can see definitely the colors changing from a more harmonic place of even close to the girdle, close to the tip of the girdle. You could see there's like a piece of harmony, there's blue colors, there's like a little bit of, it looks still like harmonic beings, like angelic systems of realms, whatever you want. And then you go out and further, and you get further away from reality, the more lost in existence you get, the more lost in Maya, the more lost in samsara. And so this structure explains everything really well. Why? For example, take for example that if you have a family member or friend that's somewhere in the realms of existence and they're really busy with their work and becoming a millionaire and doing this or that and going on a holiday and have to travel and the whole world and walk up every mountain because it's so important. They're somewhere in these areas, let's say, right? And they cannot see very much up the cone at all. In fact, they're not aware of their true being, the aware conscious being that they are, which is now listening to these words, which everybody is. In that sense, we are the same because we are looking from this world down into the existential plane. But this is the world of being, the knowing aspect, the aware aspect, which is a principle. And for that, you have to go back to one of the eternity and infinity things that I made to explain that what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that which is aware of everything. Now, when you want to know bigger realities, you're going to have to turn your face away from this realm. Your looking has to be not outwards, but inwards. And for the people who are not at that level, they cannot look up into the cone at any level. Because to look up into reality, back into the cone, you actually have to look into nothing, which is true meditation, which is the capacity to sit still and look into the black, dark screen with your eyelids closed, which is total blackness, total oblivion, total nothingness, if you wish, and rest without thought. Rest without imagining, without having to go into the history of your memory or the future projections of your worries about tomorrow or your money or your bank accounts or your work or your life or your children, without conceptualizing, without worrying about the aliens or anything. If you do any of those things, you're in this realm, below the line, in existence. If you are in speculation, theory, philosophizing, verbalizing, expressing exactly what I'm doing right now, is all within the realm, because I am using voice and sound and words and formulations and language to describe this structure, which still is within this. The activity of me doing this and making these videos is still within this realm. And when you're going to go find aliens and you find whether the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens or people or technology and whatever, it all is taking place in this trying to figure out the pieces of where the hell you are, what the hell this is. And most people are stuck in there, and the ones who are just still busy with their existential life and not even busy with anything, they're completely in this realm here, this area here. And they're not even busy trying to find out what the hell this is. They're taking it for face value. For them, this is really what existence is all about. This is all they do. They know the physical world, their bodies, they came from that. They know that their mother, their father, where they grew up, and they can amass their wealth, and then one day they're going to die. And they don't even question that as some kind of, there's nothing in them that yet is awoken to want to figure out what's going on. And so, for example, my wife was speaking to a lady that keeps wanting to ask her for attention, and she was saying, my wife was saying to her, why are you still, even though you're now divorced and you're going up and down and you're happy one day, unhappy another day, and still you're not wondering about what this is and how to get back to the still point of emptiness? How come that so much pain and suffering and frustration, and yet you're still completely enchanted by this world? Why don't you start organizing? Because the closer you get back to the origin, which is right here, the entrance point, back into the cone of eternity, the more harmonic your life gets. The further away you get, the more disharmonic your life is, and the further you get out over here, back towards the cone, which is up towards the cone, the more harmonized your life is. And so the people that are not ready are not even looking to organize. They are frantically trying to organize existence. And that's still what people like Graham Hancock and stuff do. They're trying to figure out who built the pyramids within the holographic system, trying to trace back into the existential timelines and all that stuff to try to figure out these things, like it says anything at all about reality. It only describes the infinitude of possibilities that have come and gone within the fractal strings of all the possibilities of the different dimensions. But for you to go home, for you to start really seeing reality for what it is, the only way we can go to do that is back in. And that means you take your attention off of all of this and you put your attention onto the black empty silence of nothingness. That's when you start traveling, and I'm putting that between quotes, traveling in the sense of real inner space traveling. Meditation, true meditation of going into nothing, is allowing your attention to be so empty or emptied that you actually start gravitating back to the source, up, 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 up. And in doing so, you can realize different realms, different levels of reality which are ethereal or energetic or unformed. They're still in the unformed world of the spirit, of the consciousness itself, of eternity. And I'll make another video about eternity again, because it's not some kind of concept that I'm talking about. It's not some kind of, idea. When you rest as it, you can know it, be it right now directly, because you are it, because this is the only thing there is. And I'll go into that, more of that. But I love this picture that Dipti sent me, this depiction of the system. I mean, had I known it, I would have made the other video with this one. But this is a beautiful drawing of the unformed world and then below the formed world of existence. Every single thing, quantum physics, all the computation, all the thinking, all the philosophizing, all the trying to figure things out through technology, all light and everything that you can know is in this thing, and it's not real. This is basically the lost labyrinth or maze of samsara. This is where you can get infinitely caught up in all kinds of details, whether the earth is flat or round, or whether we lost ourselves in this realm, or whether there was demons that took over and tricked us to stay in this realm. And in a way, it's all true, because in here everything is true, but nothing is the truth. What is true for now, and what is the truth is always the truth. But what is true is that yes, we could be considered to be trapped in here, maybe by some entities that wanted to capture us, that have used us to be stuck in this realm. Well, you can see it any way you want. The fact is, you're free to move up, but you have to be able to let go of this realm and look back into the black void of emptiness, which is true meditation. You have to stop being tricked or attracted to this realm, which is always thought, movement, philosophy, verbalizing, thinking, objects, all the senses and perceptions. In other words, desire. The desires keep us in this world. The need for anything is the desirable world. And desire will keep you trapped in here. Not any aliens or any other beings or any demons or any interdimensional entities. Sure, that's all part of it. But you, as consciousness, are always free to move back up into the cone of reality, of eternity. And that's why this structure is so perfect to explain it. So I'll be using it again because it's a map of reality. It literally includes every subject we ever talk about. Because every subject I ever talk about must be on this map, as you wish. Although it could be a more complex one, where all these distinctions are more clearly made of why this one is separated from this one and all that. You could probably, someone probably could explain if they knew. I think it's called Mount Meru or something like this. This whole structure, the Mount Meru, the structure of reality. I think this is one of the depictions of Mount Meru, but I don't know exactly what it's from, but it's a beautiful example. So I hope that helps a little bit again for the spiral girdle of eternity coming into existence, into the lost realm of everythingness. And the way back is through stillness, through silence, through meditation, which is the dropping away of the attention off of all the objects so you can return back into nothing. And then through intimation and insight, not through any objective information, but through knowledge, through Gnostic knowledge, you get informed, but not as information, but you get downloaded through resting in here as nothing. You just get this knowledge. It's just there. It's just you. It's not something that you have to, gather. It's just instantaneous. That's why it's called insight or realization. It's just sudden Gnostic knowledge that is there because it's always been there. It's just that you have to be still enough to be able to not be distracted by all the stuff that's down here. Thoughts and memories and emotions and historical stuff and theories and philosophy. This is all the layers of veiling that cover up the knowledge, the direct knowledge of what you truly are right up in the disc cone. Just remain as nothing, and everything that is valuable, that's true, will be revealed instantaneously through Gnostic knowledge. So I hope that helps, and I'll be going into more details, aspects, segments of it probably in upcoming videos, depending on how it flows. So another very important part in this structure that I almost forgot to add in is that when you're in this structure, everybody is, and you have gone up the cone, the higher up you've gone up the cone, the more that you can see reality from a higher perspective. So in other words, once you go up into stillness, go through stillness and drop away from the existential form, all the forms, all the things, and you go still and silent and you travel upstream like a salmon swimming up the river, because of stillness you can resist the downcoming stream of eternity, the beam of eternity coming down into form. When you can resist that by being still enough, you go up the stream and you realize a higher realities. That's what's called insights or realizations. And then when you have had those realizations, for a while they're very impressive, maybe at the first day or week, but then they just become part of your normal understanding. You acclimatize to the new state of realization, your new place in the girdle. And so the higher up you get, the more perspective you have on the lower levels. But that means two things. One, first of all, you can now see clearer. You can now see the bigger perspective. You see more of reality, but you can still function in the lower world of existence and understand all the people that have not gotten out of the illusion yet. So although you might get a little bit irritated sometimes with them being so stubborn on staying stuck down there, you can't convey this to anybody because from down in the illusion, trying to look up at reality, you see nothing but your own conceptualizations or belief structures. This is what we could consider the veils. So looking up from ignorance into truth, not through stillness, because through stillness you can see it, but since the people who haven't seen that yet, are not still enough to see up there, they haven't reached that level of going through back into the cone of intelligence, they can't see up, but everybody up can see down. So the closer you get in and higher up into the cone, the more and the more and the more you can see of reality. And then what happens is the people who are down there who don't understand what you're doing call you a conspiracy theorist or a philosophizer or just, whatever. They all think it's just imagination, what we're talking about here. Is because when they look up, they see nothing but the veil. They see all the confusion, all the ideas and all the concepts murmuring like a big blend of chaos like you see down in that drawing. However, for the ones sitting up there, it's clear as daylight because they've seen it. But that which is still unseen by them above them might be still philosophy theorizing and the ring of truth where people recognize it, but somehow they can't hold on to it. They say, wow, I can listen to what this guy says or that guy says or this guru says or that guru says. although it sounds true, they still get stuck in the old realm down there because it hasn't become their full realized embodied living experience yet. And so looking up from ignorance into the truth must be done through stillness. Then you realize and you get insights, and then that becomes your new perspective. However, just looking up as like an intellectual mind and thinking it's a concept and wanting to get it as information, trying to grasp the truth as information, as a concept, as a belief structure, that never works. And so only the ones up can look down and see everything below them, but the ones below them, the ones that are lower into in existence, they can only see more demonic stuff, but not more truthful stuff. So looking down, you can see everything below you, up to the realization point that you've reached. But looking back up, that's why explaining to people that are not ready, that are not into this, doesn't work. Because the leap is too big, the cognitive dissonance is too big. They haven't made the journey back home through stillness yet. But the point I'm making is that at the line in this drawing, at the division point in this drawing where the cone comes into existence, everything below that line is the lost world. To get to reality, you actually must go within. The inner space, the inner journey is the only real journey. Everything out here is otherwise illusion. Okay, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about the ball earth, the flat earth, which has been going on. This is a big debate, has been going on for quite a while. I've been not really looking into it until last week, and I decided to study it a little bit because the flat earth stuff just kept coming back. I had a lot of people on Facebook really that kept posting flat earth things, saying they were convinced the earth is flat. Our planet, right? And so I had to look into it because you can't deny this, because many of these people that were posting it are people that are pretty damn awake, you know. Many of them are at least awake to, you know, the financial and the world governing and the cabals and all the stuff and going on, but not necessarily spiritually awake, all of them, but many of them also include that, because you usually run into it, although they may leave it a little bit too far away. But so I wanted to propose something new and to put my take on this ball earth, flat earth theory. And I wanted to consider two more things to be considered into the equation, and they're all to be united into one. You don't really exclude anything from another. One thing doesn't mean it's one or the other. It doesn't mean it is this or that. So I would want to talk today about incorporating several elements all together in one understanding, not making it the absolute, because you cannot put these things in absolute terms, because they're not like that. The universe is in a way holographic, or a projection, a combination, and it depends on the level from which you watch, the dimension from which you're looking also. So it all comes together. You have the ball earth, you have the flat earth, you have the square earth, and you have the toroidal field. And these four should be taken in consideration and blended together in the understanding, not one exclusive of the other, one being right and one being wrong. Because if you would look at, for example, the dimensions that we know we have a two-dimensional, which is the flat plane. That's what probably the name planet comes from a plane. And so and then you have a three-dimension. That's where we live. We know two-dimensional, three-dimensional, but we live in the three-dimensional plane, if you wish, or world, right? The level of the dimension of three-dimensionality, if you wish. The main existence of humans is in that three-dimensional plane. Now, if you want to understand this, you have to look at a video that I saw that was posted by a guy that really puts video, or I don't know if it's a guy actually, but he's called Free Energy. So it's not free energy, but instead of the E for energy, it became an A. I think it has something to do with anarchy, right? So Free Energy. And he has a couple of good videos on square Earth. And I looked at a few videos of Eric Dubai on the flat Earth as well. And of course, everybody else knows the heliocentric model, which is what we've been taught in school, which recently has been expanded by saying, wait, the sun is not stationary, but it's moving, and therefore it's like like the strands of DNA. It's a cork type of, like a cork remover. It's a spiraling system where the planets are following the sun, and therefore creating this vortex. Now, the ball Earth, of course, the heliocentric model, that is, which means that the sun is at the center, the heliosphere is at the center. And then you have the flat Earth, which is the geocentric model, which means the Earth is at the center. So we all know the ball Earth theory. The flat Earth, most of you who will even watch this video must have looked into it, because otherwise you just think, most people think you're crazy because they believe in the ball Earth theory. And then you have this guy that, or person, let's say, that free energy that makes the square Earth. And of course, those who have studied anything about free energy and things like that know the toroidal field, which is that donut type of energy field system. And these should all be combined. But since we live in the third dimension, it's hard to imagine. For example, if you take this video that I was talking about, that's on the free energy movie, which he, I think, copied from an older thing, because it's quite old, it looks like an old movie, documentary like presentation. When you're on a flat plane, there is really no three dimensions, which means it's like a sheet of paper. You could even see it as the surface of the water of the ocean. Let's say you were only aware, you're at the level of 2 dimensions, and your awareness level is only 2-dimensional. So you're a 2-dimensional being. That means that when a bird, a fish-eating bird that is hunting on the ocean, is penetrating the water, if you do that in slow motion, you would only become aware of the bird as it is penetrating. And then once it's in the water, you again are no longer aware of it. And so it seems like the bird is just coming out of nowhere, out of thin air, appearing as the beak, then penetrating the head, and then the body and the feathers, and then finally the little feet. And then as soon as the whole feet have penetrated the surface, if your awareness is only the top layer, it's gone again. And so from the perspective of a 2-dimensional being, everything that's living in the 3 dimensions would not exist until it suddenly penetrates the field of the 2-dimensional flat plane. In other words, if you take a piece of paper and that's your awareness, and there's a little insect flying, and then it suddenly hits the paper, goes through it, right? Let's say it's a force field of some kind. So if you were to take that flat 2-dimensional plane as a kind of force field, as a kind of layer, then that would mean that when an insect flies around in 3-dimensional space, if it passes through that 2-dimensional plane, whether coming from above or from below, and whether at any position on that plane, suddenly there will be a blip of awareness showing up. And suddenly it would be like this little bug would appear out of nothing and disappear again. And then maybe a bit further down on the plane, at another spot of the plane, it will come back in again and will appear and disappear. And so from a 2-dimensional awareness, from a being that is 2-dimensionally aware only, it would seem as though this would come in and out of existence as out of nothing. And that's kind of what happens with ghosts and UFOs and things like that. From a 3-dimensional being, if a 4th-dimensional appearance would come into existence, it would seem like it materializes out of nothing and then suddenly disappear again into nothing. And we would say, wow, this thing came from another dimension or another place or whatever you want to call it. And it's true, it came out of another dimension. It doesn't mean it disappeared at all. It disappeared to the 3-dimensional being, like it does to the 2-dimensional awareness that would be on a 2-dimensional plane. The insect is flying around the room, but because the grid, the two-dimensional flat force field awareness is only 2-dimensional, it would only become aware of that object flying when it hits the plane at any spot. And so the same thing would apply to a 3rd-dimensional being, although more complex, because as you go up in these higher, let's say, dimensions, if you wish, you are dealing with more complex combinations of things, and therefore more complex structures. Now, it also explains why science erroneously, but in one way erroneously, another way correctly, deduces the Big Bang. Because if you have a three-dimensional, we understand that. You can have a cube. If you've watched the video, I suggest you do watch the video before even continuing on this subject if you want to look into it more, but you would look into the free energy video that he has where he explains, where somebody else explains the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, fourth-dimensional planes. If you understand three-dimensional, it's like a cube, right? You have 4 corners, but it's also lifted up, so you have a box, which we understand to be like a room, right? And a two-dimensional is just 4 lines creating a square on a flat piece of paper. But a one-dimensional level would be reduced. It won't have any width. It doesn't go left or right. It doesn't go up or down, and therefore it's a dot. Well, one-dimensional being is a speck, and that's what the Big Bang Theory is based on, that everything, which they call now three-dimensional, what they know, comes out of a speck, a grain of sand, a tiny, small, one-dimensional speck, and out of that it exploded into existence, which is really an explanation of saying when you go from 1 dimension to 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions, where we live now, you would consider that everything came out of nothing, which is that little tiny grain of sand, speck of dust, that suddenly exploded into infinitude. It didn't really. It should have really been a step from first dimension speck to a 2-dimensional flat disk, right? An infinite disk, and then a 3-dimensional, what we now know where we live, which is really easy to imagine because we're living here. We know it. We know the 3-dimensional realm, and therefore we can really easily do all these things like build buildings and shape cities and make incredible boats with shapes and hulls and all these strange shapes that we can understand because we've managed this 3-dimensional realm so well to understand it. However, the first dimensional realm is so far and so simple compared to what we know, we consider it a speck, which is, I don't call it I don't actually consider it like that, but science considers it, and it is understandable how they came to that because they're looking at a 1-dimensional speck and a 2-dimensional plane, and then a 3-dimensional where we live. And then a 4th-dimensional is where the UFOs and things come in, which are beings of a higher order. And when they come into our existence, they seem to suddenly materialize and dematerialize, which is not true. To them, they don't. To them, they're always there in that plane. They're just moving about, and to us, it seems like they are coming and going because we can't see, like if you were in the second plane dimension. So the other thing that is very important to see is that, therefore, the heliocentric model is true, the geocentric model is true, the cyclic model is true, which is the square Earth theory, is true, and the toroidal, and they all come together. For example, the flat Earth theory says that it's a geocentric model and the sun and everything that revolves around the Earth, and there is this land masses in an ocean in like a big fish bowl, or let's say a flat plate. And the edges of the plate, like a food plate where you eat your food off, is at the edges coming up. That's Antarctica. And that's where all the ice caps are, all surrounding the entire land masses. And so over it is a dome, and that dome is protecting us, or whatever you want to say it, and playing the stars and the sun and things turning around in there. And it's true as well. The geocentric model is a true version, depending on at what stage you're stepping in and looking at it. Because if you've got a holographic template, then it can go in both 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension, all the way up to the 7th dimensions, the 7 levels of mind, which I will probably make another video about, which shows the 7 levels of mind from a more the different perspective, let's say, and very very real perspective, but less tangible than what we call. And then there's this other one that the guy Free Energy makes videos about, which is the cyclic movement, the square Earth, which is that everything is cyclic, which is true. And actually now you're coming more close to the truth in a way, because it's like a space loop, which is we're touching on the 4th dimension, something that the mind, which is used to 3 dimensions and 2 dimensions, is not used to. So most people can't really imagine this 4th dimensional level or plane or existence, right? This dimension. They're all true. And so if you're looking at the cyclic time continuum, and I suggest you watch the movie from Free Energy and watch the Eric Dubai movies for all of you who have already studied that. Of course, you don't have to, and you just watch what you haven't watched. But the point is, if you look at the toroidal, it's also real. You can show right away how it's cyclic. The toroidal model of the toroidal field is a cyclic model. It is a model, but it's round cyclic. It's like a right, like an apple, right? It comes in at the top and comes out at the bottom, or whatever you want to call it. The point is, it's really like the North Pole is the point of entry, and the South Pole is the exit. So not really an exit at the bottom as a point, but the North Pole is the inner. That's why you have the hollow Earth theory. So the hollow Earth theory is also real and unreal. The toroidal field is real and unreal. The square Earth, they're all real and unreal. The flat Earth, the ball Earth, they're all relatively real. Relatively means in relation to the point of view, your perspective, or the level of consciousness that you are at, or the complexity by which you are able to grasp things, to grok things, right? So if you look at, for example, Admiral Byrd's expeditions, which most of you who looked at this flat Earth theory or the hollow Earth theory will be familiar with Admiral Byrd, who went into first the North Pole, I think somewhere around the 40s or whatever it was, 30s or 40s, or just after the war, I think it was. And then afterwards, he only went to the South Pole, to Antarctica. Now, looking at it from a toroidal point of view, you'll notice that the North Pole is the point of entry, and therefore you have the hole in the North Pole, the hollow Earth, which is the toroidal point of entry. And then as it comes out the bottom, you have the Antarctic level, which is the ice rim. Where on the flat Earth, you could see it as the ice rim. And that's the expansive part of the toroidal field, which is really the widest, bulgy part of the toroid. So you could see it as the flat Earth, and you can plant a toroidal field on top of it, being the core, that central tunnel type of system, which goes in the North Pole into the Earth, let's say. And then as it comes out of the bottom, it's still the North Pole, right? It's still the center of the Earth, and then it expands, and all the way at the bulgy, widest part of the toroidal field, you're talking about the Antarctic region, the South Pole, which is the widest. That's where there's such a big ice rim there. Now you can also apply that to the ball Earth theory. It would still apply. If you put the toroidal model onto that, it still would apply in a way, but you would think that the widest part is not at the South Pole, but you would think it to be on Earth. That's why the ball Earth doesn't work that well for imagining the toroidal field. So, but still it's cyclical. It means it doesn't go in one day to another. It's a space loop. You're not going linearly in time. You're not going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever, 24 hours, and then boom, it starts at 1 again. You're going in a cyclical loop. You're coming back to the beginning. It's not another day in that sense. It's just another toroidal circle from the north to the south, and then boom, it starts over again. It's a cyclical universe. Now, why do we talk about cyclical universe at this point? Is because you're talking about touching on the fourth dimension. And so when Admiral Byrd and all these people who went, and different people, and they're probably there right now doing all kinds of tests, and is when they went to these places to try to explore the North Pole and the South Pole, what they were really running into physically is a holographic presentation of that toroidal field. They were running into things where they were blending together, and this is right at the end of space-time. So you could say that when Admiral Byrd's left hand, his wingman, one of his important friends and colleagues that went with him to all these expeditions, or many of them, he said that at the end of the world, literally at the end of the world, you don't want to know what you're going to encounter, he said. And finally he said to somebody, apparently, he said that space-time just changes. And why does it change? Because it's going to loop back into the same toroidal field. When you get to that point of the edges of the world, at the level of physicality, which is not the absolute reality, physicality is an effect of a holographic projection. But at the physical level, when you want to reach the edges of the Earth, whether that's the North Pole going in or the South Pole coming out as this really wide, expansive, most expansive part, the whole damn thing physically is whacked out, completely ununderstandable, and planes and things have disappeared into it, and whatever they say, they really can't go beyond that point, because physically that is just the edge of our world, because we're not really physical. We're holographic of nature, or you could say consciousness of nature. We are awareness. We are infinite consciousness appearing in the physical. And so what has to be understood out of this in a way that I can maybe bring to the understanding is, it's not the ball Earth, the flat Earth, the square Earth, or the toroidal. It's all four of them depending on where you're at. And only a combination of this and plenty of more other things can give you a good understanding. So another thing is that they call this thing the firmament, right? In the flat Earth theory and in the Bibles and in most religions, they refer to this flat Earth dome structure that's holding up the waters as a dome, as some kind of a firmament. They use it as the word. Now, to look up the word firmament, you can quickly see a couple of things. First of all, firm comes from solid. So they're talking about a solid dome, right? Ment comes from the result of an action. So something that's moving creates this solidity. But ment also comes from mente, or at least mente from ment, whatever you want to call it, a result of an action. Thought is a result of an action. When you move in this, if you study anything of non-duality and spirituality, you'll understand that the thinking mind creates an apparent solidity. But it's not real. It's an apparent solidity. So mente comes from that result of an action, right? So the firmament, the ment stands for the result of an action, is the moving of some objects which then create an appearance of solidity. And mente does the same. An idea, different ideas, the thought stream creates a solid apparent identity. So from a non-dual point of view, you can also see right away that the mind the movement of action, the movement of different thoughts, the movement of different ideas flowing through the mind, create the appearance of a person, create the appearance of an identity. Same thing happens at this level if you want to consider the firmament some kind of dome above the physical Earth, whether that's flat, ball, square, toroidal, or all of them together, which is my suggestion, all of them together and none of them, depending on the relative reality. It's all relative. It's not absolute. Absolute, there's nothing in physical existence absolute, because we are a projection from the absolute, which is not divisible or divisible. It's not split up. It's a unified field. In the unified field, you don't have a ball or a flat or a square or a toroid. You don't have 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension. You have no dimensions at all. It's the mother of all. It's the created, the uncreated. It's the void, the emptiness, the silence, the absolute void. What science would call the speck before the Big Bang, the absolute nothingness, right? And then out of that come all these dimensions. So once you're in these dimensions, there is no absolute. There is only relative things, relative to eyes, relative to ears, relative to all this, everything we know just melts together, is because it is unfathomable by physicality and by the mind. And so going back to the firmament, you can also go look up the Platonic Solids. Now, Plato had this beautiful explanation about the Platonic Solids. He said there's an outer rim, and this could be called the firmament, the dome structure, and it contains all the solid ideas of the Earth. In other words, all these ideas, separate ideas, are lodged in the firmament, in the dome, in this highly reflective, what you could call firmament, right? Moving action solidity. And when cosmic rays or cosmic energy, cosmic power, power comes through, it picks up ideas. So in the Platonic solids, there is no black dog, white dog, little dog, small dog, or big horse, small horse, male horse, baby horse, mature horse, old horse, young horse. There's only separate ideas. So horse is horse. It doesn't mix with black or white or gray or brown because those are all separate Platonic solids. It's not until the cosmic power passes through the Platonic solids, picks up the ideas of the Platonic solids and stacks them, combines them. And so you get a white horse, a black horse, a brown horse, a spotted horse. You get a horse with long hair, short hair. You get an old one, a female, or older young female or male, or you get all these combinations. A big one, a small one, a strong one, a weak one. All these Platonic solids are separate ideas in the firmament, the solid. And so the firmament really is nothing other than the solid action. And you can't pass through that physically because you, as a physical body, are the projection of a 3D holographic projection from those solids. It is the energetic cosmic power that is coming through the firmament, creating the holographic projection on Earth, and then that projection, as human beings with Captain Admiral Byrd and atomic bombs and whatever they're trying, and the chemtrails, and I think CERN as well, all of them are attempts, I think, it seems to me, by physical projections of the 3D holograms who feel they have their own existence erroneously, and now are trying to get out of this dome, which doesn't even exist because it's its very projection mechanism, if you wish. So the cosmic power picks up the Platonic solid ideas, manifests the 3D hologram on Earth with all the animals and the plants and the trees, including all the complexity of our thoughts and our math, and everything is just an idea of the cosmic reality, which you could call your creator. But it's not some kind of alien out there. It's a real intricate system of energetic projections. And so to go out and try to blow a hole in the dome with atom bombs, or to try to create wormholes, which may or may not work because there's no physicality at all, right? To try to crack the dome or build a tower like the Tower of Babel all the way up to the top, or like Seth did in the last Gods of Egypt movies, where he built a tower all the way to meet his maker, which is his grandfather Ra, right? The one who created the world. You can't really meet your maker in a physical way because you're a hologram. Now, for those people who want to see a little thing which is quite funny to use, it's pretty accurate to use, in fact, is this thing that's called a parabolic mirror. Right? And there's this little toy that's called the Mirascope, and it's a parabolic mirror, like small little toy. It's only like $6 or $10 or something. And you can put, it's like two mirrors on top of each other. And they're parabolic, so they're shaped donut style, let's say, right? They're a little bit like a toroidal field. It's not completely round, but it's like a donut shape, right? It's a, what do they call it? Whatever. The point is, you put something inside of this parabolic mirror, and then you will see a 3D image on top of it. This is a holographic projection. Now, if you look how damn accurate it is from the right angle, your mind is boggled by it, because if you're sensorily, you're seeing something that's not there, but it definitely seems to be there. And this is kind of what we are. We are a giant parabolic mirror. This Earth is the toroidal field that is a parabolic mirror. It's both ball, flat, square, and toroidal. It doesn't matter what you're looking at. It depends where you're looking at it from. It's a holographic projection. Now, not holographic like we know it. It's much more real than what we could make, because it comes from a higher realm. It's not the human-made holographic reality, because we would make this little parabolic mirror thing in the Mirascope, and we can't grab it, you can't touch it. But the holographic projection that we are comes from our psychic double. And for this, you'd have to go to a book called The Origins of Man and the Universe by Barry Long, which was my first eye-opener, really, at so many levels, but more of a non-dual spiritual truth teacher. He was not much into physics and things like that. But the point is, he's got a book that there's no second of. There's nobody that has ever written something like that that I've ever run into. And he explains many things in there. One of them is the psychic double, showing that there are 7 levels of mind. And from all these 7 levels, the 7th level is the highest level. And from it, it's like a lens that drops a shadow down onto the level below it. So 7 goes down to 6 is a lower level. And the 6th goes to 5th and 4th and 3rd, where we are, and 2nd and 1st. It's not really the other way around. Nothing really exploded out of nothing. It is always the shadow or a lesser reality that is projected through the prism, the film of the higher reality. So when the light shines through level 7, it casts a shadow on level 6. And therefore level 6 is not as real, because it is much less real, because it's only like a shadow, a reflection, a projection, a holographic projection, if you wish, of that higher level. And then the light shines through the next prism or lens and casts a shadow on level 5, and then on level 4, and level 3, and level 2. And exactly like this guy in the movie, this YouTube video from Free Energy explains about 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. If you have a 3-dimensional square cube, and you let a shadow cast onto a 2-dimensional piece of paper underneath, you'll see a representation of that 3-dimensional cube. But it is not as real or as complex or as defined or as solid or as voluminous, right? It doesn't have any volume because it's only 2-dimensional. So you would say that the shadow on the 2-dimensional shadow of the 3-dimensional cube on the piece of paper, which is the flat 2-dimensional paper, is nothing but a really sad lower level of existence. And this is why you don't want to be a 2-dimensional being or a 3-dimensional being, but you want to rise up and become the 3-dimensional being that you, the 4-dimensional being that you are, right? And then go up to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and all the way up to original height. And from there, you're going to another level again, because it's again cyclic and unending. It's infinite. It's eternal, right? But the point is, we are trying to work things out on planet Earth, pretending that system in which we're working it out is the absolute. So we want to put everything into words, into images, because we're used to 3-dimensional images. So the mind and the physical body are not the absolute. And so trying to work out the ball Earth theory as the absolute, or the flat Earth theory as the absolute, or the square Earth theory as the absolute, it doesn't make sense, because you're assuming a wrong assumption. The assumption is that we are physical, even though these people might think that they're into quantum physics and know that everything is energy. They're still trying to prove as though the flat Earth is there. It's like that parabolic mirror of the mirroscope, when the guy puts in the little frog, and I got all these links down here. And when he puts the frog in, you try to grab the frog at the top, it's not there. That's what we are, but at a higher level. We're not really there. That's why we die. That's why we disappear. That's why everything in existence disappears. Even the sun, science says, which is the erroneous science, or at least incomplete science, because they exclude all these things, and they exclude the fact that we're not physical, right? And that we're not mental. That's not the highest reality. But looking at it from that point of view, even the sun disappears. Of course it does, because it's a holographic projection from the real. From the 7th level, 6th level, 5th level, 4th level, 3rd level, 2nd level, and then 1 dimension, which is the speck. So science has it all back to front, because they're looking at through the lens at the wrong end of the lens, reducing everything, thinking that the origins is from the 1st dimension. No, the origins comes from the 7th dimension and drops down, levels down. So if you want to go up, you got to go into the 4th dimension. That's why everybody who's spiritual is talking about going to the 4th and 5th dimensions. Is because you're going up to higher realities, not down. Science, who's got it all the way back to front, is looking at that speck in the 1 dimension, thinking that's where everything came from. No, that's where everything results to.
That's a shadow upon a shadow upon another shadow upon another shadow leading to that first dimension. We don't really come out of the speck. We come out of the higher realms down, and now we're looking, you have to look back up, and that's within. Looking back up is not looking at the square Earth or trying to fly out to Antarctica or trying to prove if you go high enough up into space or whatever you think it is, or the firmament or into the waters beyond. It doesn't really matter because you're still identified within the holographic projection. The fact is you can't get out the or out of the dome. You can't get out of this firmament because the firmament is the lens through which this 3D projection is being created. The physicality of our very existence, the plants, the earth, the human bodies, is what we are because of the lens, if you wish. But the lens is not a physical lens either. It's not like there's a real dome up there. That's only the representation in physicality of the dome. You're only seeing a dome because you want to see a dome, because you continue to believe that physicality is the absolute. And so they want to travel out to Antarctica or to the North Pole and find the hollow earth or find the edges of Antarctica and see what's over there. But the point is you're coming too close to the holographic projection, and therefore things start to warp and disappear and interdimensional stuff starts to happen and everything screws up. And that's why they say that when they went over the edge that everything in planes and things disappeared. Why? Because you're coming too close to the projection. If you take that mirroscope and you put a little frog or a little screw or a little coin into it, like this video that I've shown you that you could look at, is this video that shows you that there's not really there, but you can see it really clear from a certain angle. But if you're tilting the mirroscope too much, then it won't project right. And so when you're coming to the edge of Antarctica, it won't project right anymore. The holographic projection system will not function that close to the edge, and therefore things start to warp, disappear. Space-time continuum starts to change. Everything starts, the physicality starts to warp, and everything is whacked out. And that's why they made sure nobody gets to go to Antarctica and figure it out. In the meantime, they themselves are trying to figure shit out. And they're going over there, doing whatever they're doing, including CERN, and including atom bombs that they've been throwing at this highly reflective solid firmament, thinking that everything is physical. Even the firmament is nothing but a projection in sense of the real behind it, of the real Platonic solids. But Platonic solids are not, they're energetic, they're non-physical. They're only become physical if you're looking for them and you find this high reflective dome structure suddenly there, because in sense that's what it looks like. But that's only if you're looking from the senses. So anyway, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but the point I'm trying to make is I hope I could give some of you some other perspective on things. This is not the absolute, because you can't have an absolute. So don't bash me and trash me for putting a ball earth theory, a flat earth theory, a square earth theory, toroidal theory, all of them together, or saying I'm wrong in this or that. Of course I'm wrong. I'm always wrong. Everybody's wrong and everybody's right. The point is, how much of that which is right can you include, and how much of that which is wrong can you exclude? And something that's wrong is not necessarily wrong at all from a certain perspective. Can you keep the wrong and keep it one? Or do you turn everything into good and bad, which is the dual existence, which is why real teachers teach non-duality and don't even concern themselves much with ball earths or flat earths or square earths or toroidal fields, because the point is, can you reduce everything into one? That's really what non-duality means, not two. No duality. How can you include death? How can you include murder? How can you include the New World Order and the Cabal in one system, without having one that's bad and one that's good, without having one that's wrong and one that's right, but actually including all the different perspectives, instead of stepping at it from the third dimension saying, well, everything is wrong. Two dimensions don't exist because, look, the piece of paper is in space. Of course, from a third dimensional point of view, a piece of paper laying on your table is a two-dimensional plane, but then again, it's not, because it's a piece of paper you can bend and you can hold up and change and throw through the room, and you can crumble it up into a piece and say, no, it's a ball. Of course it's a ball if you crumble up the piece of paper. And that's the same with this structure we're talking about. We're not talking about an absolute. We're talking about stepping stones. We're talking about seventh-dimensional realm coming down into the sixth, coming down into the fifth, fourth, third, second, first, And all of them existing at the same, let's say, time, although time is, again, not in all these realms. This is just our perspective, our words. We don't even have words for these things. That's why it's so damn complicated to explain this. But I hope, in a way, I could bring some of it together to put more things into it, not less, not excluding things, but from a different level, including them, but keeping them where they belong at that level. The flat Earth is correct at a certain level. The ball Earth is also correct at a certain level. The square Earth, which is a cyclic space continuum, the space loop, is also right. And the toroidal field, also, all of them together, is more right than one of them. They're together, but depending on from where you're looking at, depending on what position you're in, what level you're in, what dimension you're in, what capacity of mental understanding you have, what background of conditioning you have, what science teachings you've had and upbringing you've had, and what kind of understanding you can incorporate into a bigger model than just one and excluding others. So hopefully we can put some of this to rest and grasp the higher realms and go into the fourth dimension where we can't even fathom, because aliens and UFOs coming into existence are just that. They're just coming from a fourth dimension, and we're like, oh my God, they materialized out of nothing. Well, no, they materialized to you out of nothing because you are not aware of the fourth dimensional plane, let alone the fifth, sixth, and seventh, and whatever comes after that again, another cyclic structure after that, because it goes on and on. But let's not go in that for today. So I'll keep it at that, and I hope it is of use.
This video was sponsored by Caseta by Lutron.
Imagine you have a giant